Hey everybody, this is Joe. Thank you for watching my Giga Texas construction update video.
Well, welcome to Giga Texas. It's Friday the 13th, believe it or not. But fortunately, everything seems to be going well and I haven't had any big problems because it's Friday the 13th or anything else today, which is great. Now, interestingly enough, many of you may be distracted by the recent significant price cuts in all of the Tesla cars across the United States and in many countries across the world. I think they did that because they wanted to distract you away from these images. And this is taken just this morning inside the casting machine structure, where without any doubt they are assembling the 9,000-ton Giga Press. And it is quite interesting to see how quickly this is going together, just that knowing that we just got some of the deliveries in the last several days. But it looks like they're making very fast progress, as you see in all of these images, so I'm really excited to be able to share them with you today. The only other thing that I want to talk about in the intro before we get into an action-packed day is, as you can see by this image here, across the highway on that southwest section where they're building the west support facility, that area that is being graded and then now having gravel mix put on it on that far southwest side is now transforming even more. There's signs of paved intersections being put in on the west and the east sides, as you can see by these images here. And in addition to that, crews are starting to set up the blocks to mark off trailer parking locations. So it looks like this is going to continue to expand in the near future to have more of the warehouse on wheels trailers. And this may actually free up the other area, as you can see here, right next to it, maybe for some additional construction. I don't know, but it'll be something worthy to watch. Anyway, one other thing I do want to mention, if you take a look at my video from yesterday, the 12th of January, I covered a topic that I've had a lot of people ask about, and it has to do with the recent media stories about 5 large projects and over $722 million worth of expansion. And in the video I explained to you why that is not completely accurate and what is really going on. So make sure you check that video out for an in-depth discussion of that. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of the Friday the 13th and a great weekend coming up. Take care.
My drones are ready and raring to go. Let's go flying over Giga Texas. On this gorgeous and brisk morning here at Giga Texas, we're going to start off on the northeast corner of the casting machine structure. We'll position the drone around the side so we can get some good views inside. And while we're getting ready to go there, I noticed these Model Ys, red and white, on these platforms, and some test castings as well. Very cool to see these displayed for our viewing pleasure before we take a look inside. So let's wrap around the building and get ready to look into the casting machine structure today. As we turn towards the interior, you'll notice a little bit of a orange glow on the top of the windows. That's the gorgeous sunrise that's right behind the drone. Now, as we look into the far end of the casting machine structure here, the West Bay, you see quite a bit of deliveries in those crates with the blue tops and other materials in red and white. Those are all parts of the 9,000-ton Giga Press that we've seen delivered recently. You can also see some major components in that middle section of the West Bay, and we'll get some better views once we turn the corner of the building. But I just wanted to give you a good view of how this appears today and what the activity level looks like inside. This is a very exciting day because we get a chance to see the beginnings of the assembly of the largest Giga Press, the 9,000 ton, that's the clamping force Giga Press, which is pretty cool. Now, as we continue to get closer and get some better views of the activity, I know the next question people will ask is, well, how long is it going to take for them to assemble this and get it tested and calibrated, and then we'll start seeing some test castings for the Cybertruck? It's kind of hard to say, but based on the previous 4 Giga Presses, it'll take about a month for them to get this completely assembled and start some of the calibration and testing. So I would say that sometime by the middle of February, I may start seeing some test casts being prepared for recycling. But by the time we get to March, I think that this will definitely be operational, at least enough for them to start using some of the castings. But again, that's just based on what I've seen on previous Giga Presses. But these views here are very good. You can see how the first of the 9,000 ton Giga Presses is being installed. It's got that frame that's on that specialized mount in the concrete that we've been watching over the last several months being prepared. And you can also see some of the other end components that will be the injection for the aluminum being assembled as well in that mid bay. But overall, this is a really good view. I'm going to pull the drone away because there's unfortunately a light right next to the drone on the right-hand side. So we're going to go around this light, and then I'll come back in for some different views through these windows. So if only we could move that light, it could make looking inside a little bit easier. But now that I've gone pretty much past the light, I'll bring the drone back in and we can get some good views from this perspective of all of the activity, all of the parts, and how the Giga Press assembly is coming along. This is an extremely good and encouraging sign that all of these parts are here and how quickly they have gotten to the process of the assembly. So I hope that you enjoyed these views. I know that a lot of people have been waiting a very long time to see this, and I was glad to be able to capture this for you today. So anyway, we'll pull back and position the drone to start looking at some of the activity on the north end of the building. As you pass the north side of the paint shop, you can see more of these ducts getting prepared to be moved inside onto the platforms into the second floor. And then here at the battery cathode plant, I'm going to take the opportunity with the doors open on these 2 platforms, specifically the one on the right, to try to get you about as close in, and you can see some of the activity on the inside. And there's quite a bit of crates now being installed, at least on that second floor, kind of a mezzanine portion of that particular floor. And you can see a lot of the white painted columns as well. So let's move around the northwest corner of the building. You can see some of the activity on the inside here, and we'll prepare to fly down this side of the building as well. Now, I will try to look into the windows here, but the sun was coming up pretty quickly, so we started getting a lot of reflections. But this is a good view of the 4680 battery production section of the building and all of the machines that are operational, and they are making a lot of the 4680s now. I don't know what the production ramp is at this point in time, but late in December, Tesla released some information about some of the milestones that they have reached with the 4680s. So now that nearly a month has transpired, I would imagine that that's only ramping higher than that point in time. Now here's a good view of this new concrete pour. This completes the concrete replacement for this section. This is also where they have been removing those temporary wall panels and expanding the number of receiving docks. And as I was leaving later on in the day, a crane was positioned next to these panels. So I think we're going to see more of them removed. When they do remove them, this is what they look like. They've got the doors installed. It looks like they've got some temporary platforms and also maybe preparing for some load levelers installation at some point in the near future. We're going to continue to the south, and I'll give you some good views of the progress here at the west main entrance. That sloped amount of dirt and the grade, it seems like that's continuing to persist, so it's the highest where these doors are, and then it tapers off to either side. This is kind of a good view inside. You can see how it's being reconfigured with that second floor mezzanine and how it's being changed. And you can also see a little bit onto the third floor above the main doors as well. But unfortunately, the sun is just too high, so views inside now are not really possible. But I'll pull back and you get a good overall view of how the west main entrance and this landscaped area is looking today. Also, if you look at the base of the building, you can see that slope on either side of the central section by the glass doors. So I'm curious to see if that's going to remain that way and then what they end up building here. But it looks like most of the underground plumbing reconfiguration work is done, so the grading work is underway, which means that soon we will start getting some clues about what they're going to be constructing. So let's pull the drone up higher and we'll cross over the roof and we'll take a look at the body in white HVAC ducting installation progress. As we come down a little bit lower altitude, you can see that the majority of the work on the open section of the roof with this sort of a grate-like material is completed. And it looks like they still have to put the tops on the ducts themselves, but otherwise this is really getting close to being a finished project. So more progress here, which is great to see. Now I'm going to bring ourselves over these power lines again. I'm going to turn back facing to the west and just give you a update on these new receiving doors and the concrete apron section that they're reconfiguring. The one on the left here looks like it's very close to having some rebar and concrete installed. And then this one here, most of the plumbing work now appears completed. Now they're working on the grade, and so hopefully we'll see some rebar and concrete on this one soon as well. Now this larger one, we can see that there's still some plumbing work underway. Hopefully that'll be done soon, and then we can see that concrete replacement here as well. And you can see some of these black and yellow ramps and some other of these black materials. So let's pull back a little bit and I'll show you the progress on this intersection. You can see more formwork for curbs in a very interesting pattern, particularly on the left-hand side. And it looks like the grade work is being prepared, so hopefully we'll see some of the asphalt paving here soon, or perhaps concrete. This smaller lot, which is sort of the testing and staging lot for the Model Ys, is really full today. I mentioned my previous video that was the fullest that I had seen, and it looks like there's even more. And you can see the test track at the bottom of the screen where you have those yellow dividers, and that's where they drive the cars over rumble strips and just make some final tests before the cars are moved from this section over to this new car staging and transportation lot, where we see quite a bit of Model Ys, many of these transport trucks at work picking them up, and this is just a constant stream of cars being loaded up and shipped off site every day now. So another great sign. And with the recent price cuts on all of the vehicles for Tesla's fleet, we can only expect to see this continuing to ramp up and get busier. The warehouse on wheels here on the east side looks pretty busy. There's actually some space for trailers that are open, so I'm not sure exactly what to think about that at this point in time, but it could be that they're moving some of the trailers over to the west side of the highway, and we'll look at that a little bit later in the video. Right now we're flying over these trailers that are for the contractor offices and a lot of storage. We can also see this tall mound of dirt. Near there is where they do some recycling of some of the vehicle bodies and other parts. And then here, I'm just going to show you again, this is where some of the battery pack crates are broken down for recycling. And then every once in a while I see some of the battery structural packs or the battery packs over here as well for recycling. And then, as I mentioned, this is where other recycling takes place, right next to this hill. And I'm just trying to get an idea of what is here, and I don't see any of the Model Y bodies for recycling today. So let's get closer to the battery cathode plant, and let's take a look at the activity up here today. So for those of you that have looked at my previous video, the 12th of January, where I went into great detail about the major projects going on in the Giga Texas property, including 3 here. And this first structure that we're approaching with the partial steel structure, all of the footings, and some of the other work going on, this is, at least for now, listed as the die shop. And so that's very interesting to kind of imagine what that may be. That would suggest that in this section here, where we see crews preparing more of these large footings, and again, look at their size for scale, the densely packed pier section is going to have some very heavy machinery, and I'm kind of curious to see what that is, how that relates to die manufacturing or maintenance, and what kind of equipment they install. You can see that the crews are putting these kind of ties in between each of the footings, and that pattern is repeating across the width and length of the foundation. And also, I'll give you another view of this steel structure from a little bit lower altitude so you can get an idea of how this is shaping up and how it appears. I'm also looking to see if I can detect any of the mounts for the concrete wall panels, and at this point I don't, but we can expect to see some of those welded on in the future. This is a good view of the iron pipes and manifolds that the crews are preparing and also installing onto this steel structure as well. So I'm going to pull the drone up a little bit back, and then we're going to cross over the battery cathode plant, which is the second of 3 projects here that I discussed on my 12 January video. And this one is continuing to progress with quite a bit of materials being loaded inside now. You can see some on the left of the screen in that opening. You can see more materials here being assembled. And as I bring the drone down, taking advantage of the light, you can see into the openings on the ground floor where more materials are located. And then above the 2 platforms with those temporary doors, we've been seeing a lot of equipment being moved inside there as well. So as we continue more towards the north, I'm going to give you a good view of this new clearing section, and you can see how this is progressing as they raise the grade and work towards the south. And the white building we now know as the cell test lab, and that is the 3rd of the projects that I discussed in my previous video, so check that out if you want more details. But now that we know what this is, it makes a lot of sense if they're going to be doing some high-risk, hazardous material testing to have a facility away from the main factory. So I think that's what that is and why it's located here. So as I pull back to the north, I'll give you a good view of this clearing and also this mound in the middle that they are continuing to work on to remove. And then they're using that dirt to raise the grade along the east side and reclaim some of that section where the water detention ponds are located and where I showed you that clearing section next to the cell test lab. We're going to proceed closer to the cathode building here, and I'll give you a good view from pretty close in. You can also see some of the gravel mix being put on the ground. They do this so that they can control a lot of the mud that we can expect as we finish up January and go into February, where it'll get colder and more rainy. And now as we continue down the west side, you can see excavation work in the middle for some of that blue water pipe is continuing, and they're working their way towards the south. And you can also see more of the steel materials stored on the right-hand side of the screen. And then I'm going to bring you down to get a better view from this vantage point of this steel structure and how it appears at this point as they continue to prepare to expand the steel structure onto the footings that are in the process of curing. So I would expect within the next week we'll see this building getting both wider with the steel structure on this end and then starting to extend to the south, particularly on the east side, as those footings are more complete and closer to being cured. And then again, you can see where the crews are preparing the west side footings. There's that concrete pump truck, which means that we're going to see some more of the concrete poured, probably in those 3 unfinished footings that you see there by sometime tomorrow. So let's proceed over towards the electrical switchyard and take a look at some of the changes there today. One of the things that I notice is that there is activity with these blue, white, and black pipes. You can see that forklift moving some around, and it also looks like the materials are starting to grow, which is a great sign. And I'll show you some other construction that's newly underway today, which is also exciting. But as we look at the electrical switchyard, we can see some of the disconnects on the bottom of the screen, some of the 2 concrete pads waiting for those transformers to arrive, and it looks like they have some bricks to do some enclosures. Crews are working in and amongst all of the steel, and also working here in the middle with the cable tray trench. You can see where that man lift is, and it looks like they may be working either on or very close to one of these circuit breakers, the V-topped circuit breakers. And this is a good view with the lighting of how the A-frames and the steel structure here appears, and also how the cable tray trenches are coming along. This is just showing you the 4 lighter gray newly assembled and installed tall power poles, and those will be to allow the high tension wires to be connected. They'll connect to the A-frames and then run from the A-frames through the entire electrical switchyard. And this is a good vantage point of how the electrical switchyard looks today. Now I'm going to back the drone up over the power lines and bring you down, and what I want you to pay attention to is in this clearing that's just under the drone, and also you can see where they're doing some excavations nearby in that grassy area. This is having some resumed earthwork, which is great to see, because this is the location, once it's completed, will be where the Megapack battery electric storage system will be installed. And then once that's finished, it will be working in conjunction with the electrical switchyard and the solar panels on the roof of Giga Texas to both power Giga Texas, but also help stabilize the grid in Texas. So we've crossed over the highway, and I want to show you the steel storage, also the transport truck queuing section on this side of the highway, and just to get a good idea of how much materials are continuing to be stored here, and how they are spreading out and reaching all the way into and filling this new material staging location. Also, you can see there's those yellow and other devices in the middle. Those are welders, and you have a welding shop, and then a lot more materials. As we continue further to the south, we'll take a look at this material storage location, and it continues to not only be for storage of materials, but also it serves as a driveway from the north to the south to the construction site that you can see in the distance. And on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see some purple piping for irrigation and more of the plants waiting for the landscape installation. So let's fly down to the south and take a look at the activity down there today, where there's quite a bit to see. So what we see in this material storage location is continue to have materials up to the north end, but it also looks to me like it's continuing to slowly clear out. And then on the south side, we can see how the warehouse on wheels expansion appears today. Quite a bit of trailers have been moved over here now. And we can also see here what appears to be some of the concrete remnants that were removed from the south end of the building, and it looks like they may be doing recycling operations over here. And I want to fly over these hills and valleys as a reminder of what the clearing area used to look like. And you can also get a good appreciation for just all the work that they have done to flatten out this grade, install on the south side where the red truck is driving new road, some of the water detention ponds, kind of those long looking ponds next to the road. You can see one underneath the drone. A lot of the gravel mix being applied onto the surface, which is a great sign. And then also, I'll show you in a second, but it appears that they're starting to put the markers, as you can see in the upper right-hand kind of the screen. Those markers are being put, they're kind of like little curbs where trailers will be parked. So it looks to me, at least in the near term, that this is going to be a further expansion of the warehouse on wheels, where all of those trailers you see in the background between this clearing section and Giga Texas. But this is a really good view of how this section is transforming, and it's just quite a bit of work that's been done to get to this point, and it's very impressive. I'm going to bring the drone down a little bit closer to the ground. You can see where the workers are walking around, and they are placing those markers for the trailers. As you can see, many lines of them, and it'll be great to see what they end up doing, at least in the short term. This also helps answer the question some people have asked: are they going to be building a structure here on this part of the clearing? And the answer is no, at least not at this time. You can also see that there is a new intersection. There's actually one on the south side too, but I wanted to give you a good view of how this appears. And they are doing some paving and preparation for more paving. So it'll be great to see how the roads will appear once all the asphalt paving is completed. And you can see that warehouse on wheels expansion on the left-hand side of the screen. So let's get ready to go over the highway and resume the flight over there. I'm going to fly over the south of the cyber pond just to give you another view of all the materials being staged and stored here for future construction, and also how the work here underneath the towers appears with some of the utility preparation for movement and replacement of these short power lines in those green utility boxes. More of the steel corrugated pipes here, and directly underneath this section is where they've been relocating them and establishing new connections so they can prepare for the new foundation. And then this is some trench work with a green pipe, and just showing you how the underground connections are being made. One of the things I want to show you here, in addition to all the parts for the stamping machine components in these crates and blue packaging, is you can see that truck, and they have rolls of steel which is used with the stamping machines to stamp out various body panels, which is really great to see. Another delivery of those today. Now I'll give you a good view perspective of this south end and how it looks today, with the rework and continual removal and reconfiguration of the underground utilities, the pipes, and also the removal of some of this debris and some of the concrete that used to be here. I would say that about 95% or more of the concrete is gone, with a few sections remaining, and the section where you see here looks like it's being cleaned up and prepared. So hopefully we'll see this section very flat and prepared for construction soon. This is a new trailer that just was delivered here in the last couple of days. This is another great sign, I think, because usually the trailers indicate that the contractors will have an on-site office. So that may be part of the beginning of some more construction here on the south end. And the extension of the building project is getting nearer to starting, which is great to see. There's also some construction going on here and some trenching. They are doing some repairs and reconfiguration to the fire water loop for the fire hydrant system. And also you can see a number of Model Ys here on the south side, some getting lined up, getting ready to be moved over to the east side for new vehicle staging and transportation. This is the loading of more crates on top of this temporary platform onto the third floor of General Assembly. And this just constant amount of materials being delivered here through this temporary platform. And from the views on the inside through the windows, you could see quite a bit of those materials as well. So I'll bring the drone up higher and pull back so you can get a good perspective of the south end on this Friday the 13th with a lot of exciting things to see here at Giga Texas. As always, thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a great weekend. And as always, thanks for your support. Take care.